So once you have some of those basic needs met with your health, with enough money, we're going to jump into kind of the science of happiness. But I first kind of want to do a kind of deep dive into Western American culture a bit and try to see if we can get to some commonalities on how our society, American society in particular, actually kind of thinks about happiness in the manner in which we approach our lives. And so the first one I want to start with is this Hollywood notion of happiness. How do you think it's portrayed to us in media, television, movies, music?
There you go. You can talk about pursuit of happiness.
No, we're not going to talk about that. It's broad because happiness can be like um, relationships with a loved one or a mate, and it sometimes gives a false idea of what true love is, especially in relationships with a partner. Uh, and happiness is for some, it's almost like a constant state of being where they're walking around with a big smile on their face. And I just don't think that's realistic.
You don't watch many movies, television, social media anymore?
I do all the time. Maybe we're just not watching the same things.
Because I just get a completely different sense of what's being portrayed, especially to that demographic between like 16 and 30. To me, it's highly related to materialism.
Well, that depends on the programs you're watching, right? I mean, it's you're talking about like the Kardashian stuff. Are you talking about reality TV or the pursuit of wealth?
I think a lot of the movies and shows always go to that, though. That even romantic movies, they always end up somehow finding wealth together.
Mm.
I mean, it always ends up being that like so-called American dream at the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's very materialistic in my opinion, and even the relationships and the manner in which they're portrayed, they tend to be something that's unrealistic as well, right? Like the love at first sight type of relationship and viewing love in terms of like this elated feeling um where two people fall for each other in a romantic way, and then something is built, like the happiness is built through that, and like career status and money. I think when you look at popular music, um there's often talking about travel and boats and money and parties, right? Sex, women, right? It's a lot of like trying to obtain something that reflects on your status as a alpha male or an alpha female,
Mhm.
right? So it kind of really pushes us or even younger people to have this false idea of happiness. You go on any social media and you scroll, you're going to see people on islands and bikinis, and they're portraying themselves in a brand in a certain way. And I think that portrayal of the brand is important. So if we look back at some of this data, what happens, post 2012? Why is this spike in distress? And part of that is the social comparison and people's viewpoint of what makes them happy, right? So the more that you are exposed to popular media and popular culture, social media like TikTok, like Instagram, the more you get a distorted view about the purpose of life. And what's interesting to me is when you see the spike in people seeking out mental health services, there's still a general theme of almost like a narcissistic self focus of seeking pleasure, kind of this hedonistic viewpoint of what is going to lead to happiness, right? You in the just standard therapies, I think, that are not implementing this type of science and are not utilizing decades and decades, if not centuries, of wisdom into therapy. There's still a lot of rumination and focus about what you don't have, right? You can, in therapy and its worst, someone come in and just gab about their week, right? They're going to complain about their friendships, about their marriage, about their relationship, about what they don't have. And the poor therapist the one who's quite ineffective is just going to guide them through that kind of rumination process in an unsuccessful way. And that's my problem. My concern with all of this is there anything in our science base that's going to suggest to us that the more we focus on ourselves, we become happier, or the more we seek out those material standards, right? That makes us happier. And the answer is no. In everything that I'm reading and everything that I understand, I think there is often going to be just a profound sense of loss and emptiness because life isn't going to have the same type of meaning.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and I think I see that a lot throughout media. And when you sent the notes, I looked up. You had this on, and the other one is called eudaimonic happiness. Eudaimonic would be the opposite, which is meaning and fulfillment.
It's a Greek word.
Yeah.
Yep.
So are we teaching generations to, and you do often hear this in even like things like self-help books, even in education, you have to do things for yourself. You have to look over yourself first, take care of yourself first. You do hear those messages quite frequently. I don't think there's anything like evil about them, but that being said, we don't always sit there and think about, well, look for yourself, but you got to find meaning. You got to find fulfillment. You got to understand what those words mean and how much they're going to benefit you more than the money that you're going to make.
Can we transition then to principle number 1? And this is something that I feel like it is very clear in the scientific literature, is the obtaining purpose and meaning to one's life. So if we are going to apply these principles to obtaining happiness in our lives, we all have to consider, what are we living for?
Mm-hmm.
What are we getting up for in the morning? And the challenge as a psychologist and the work that I'm doing when you see really severe depression is they often ask that question. For what? Why am I doing this? Nothing matters, right? There's this nihilistic kind of viewpoint of life. And I have to question, what are the factors that relate to that? If we agree that life includes suffering and it's going to include struggle, imagine if you don't attach some degree of meaning to that. If you don't attach any meaning to that, you are experiencing pain without purpose. So I want to pose the question to you, and these are deep philosophical questions, and either one of you can kind of try to pontificate on this first. But when you ask the question to either one of you about the purpose that you've assigned to your own life, what is the meaning? Why do you get up in the morning? What comes to your mind?
I'll share something with you. Because I think I've learned over the years things that I enjoy doing, things that I'm good at, and how I can bring that towards some ultimate goals that we're working for in this moment. We'll use the podcast, for example. So I'm going to ask you this question, Raj. Do you know who Marty Seligman is?
Yes, University of Pennsylvania, positive psychology.
There it goes. Okay, so I stumbled upon him in preparation for this discussion, and I was like, well, this is interesting because he, in his previous career back in the 60s, worked on the idea of
learned helplessness.
Yeah. And he was kind of miserable with that. Didn't like that psychology was focused on misery, and he wanted to focus more on happiness. Yeah. And flourishing is really where he focused his direction, which goes back to the Greek word that eudaimonic. What is it? Sorry. Anyway,
it's eudaimonic.
Yeah, eudaimonic. Okay. But he came up with basically this. It's a scale. It's called the VIA, Values in Action, and it's 240 questions, and it's about knowing our strengths, so that it allows us to use those to benefit us consciously and more actively, and develop those that we might find potentially useful. And it's been connected to enhanced well-being, self-acceptance, greater happiness, improved mental health, positive work experience, and so on. And he broke it into 6 virtues, and then within there are those strengths. And I took the test to come up with what my strengths are. Now, when you get the output,
Vacation.
when you get the output from
You do
this,
vacation really well.
there's no vacation in my life because all I do is continue working just in a different place.
Sitting with you.
So those 24, when you do the test, it ranks them out. So let me just give you what the 6 virtues are. There's transcendence, which is appreciation of excellence and beauty, gratitude, hope, spirituality, and humor. As a virtue, transcendent strengths connect us in a meaningful way to the world around us. There's wisdom, which is curiosity, creativity, perspective, love of learning. There's humanity, social intelligence, love, and kindness. Humanity strengths come into play by helping us build and maintain positive, warm relationships with others. There's courage, which is bravery, zest, honesty, perseverance. Temperance, which is self-regulation, prudence, humility, and forgiveness. And then justice, which is teamwork, leadership, and fairness. So when you do this output, you get these lists of all these things that are more, and this is how you see yourself, because it's, you're testing yourself. You're not having other people rate you. And it's a Likert scale of, it'll give a statement and then you answer, it's very much like me, neutral, unlike me, or very much unlike me. So I went through the 240. Are you curious what my top 5 are?
Yeah.
So I kind of want you guys to do it too. And I'd just like to see where you fall into it. Maybe we could stop this and do it now, and you can share them.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.